In this video, we're going to be replacing the radiator on this 2015 Hyundai Sonata. Okay, before you start any AC work, you want to bring your vehicle to a mechanic, have them vacuum out your AC lines before you start to open up any lines. We're going to loosen up this top piece here, our radiator support cover. I'm going to use a Phillips screwdriver, slowly back these out. So now we're on the inside and the passenger side of our bumper and the fender well area. We have 1, 2, 3 push clips, Phillips push clips, and we have one Phillips or 10mm bolt holding the bumper to the fender. So we're going to use a 10mm socket and take that bolt out. And then a Phillips screwdriver to remove these. All right, with a panel tool, take that out the rest of the way. Now here, you can rotate your wheel to make it a little easier for yourself, but you'll be rotating your wheel back and forth for left and right side. Just like to take the time, do it with the wheel straight. All right, on this side we have the same 3 clips and a 10mm or Phillips bolt up top. We're going to use a 10mm. And we'll get all 3 of these started, and then we'll come back with the panel tool and take them all the way out. Okay, now underneath we have a few bolts here, or Phillips. We're going to use the 10mm bolt option. We're going to take them right out. This one here is actually just the Phillips. Now this may be different than your car. Somebody may have replaced this. Whatever the case, if it's on the red, go ahead and take it out. Moving along, we have another 10mm Phillips. And then one more down this end here. Okay, we've come to the driver's side of our bumper here. This is our bumper fender gap. What we're going to do is grab right on the inside here. You can see it's already starting to pull out. We're going to pull away from the fender. We're going to do that. We're going to try and separate the bumper from the bumper bracket that's in behind it here. Just going to continue to pull out. You're going to try and work your hand in a little further as you go. You don't want to put too much strain and bend the bumper here at a hard angle. So just continue to pull out. Sometimes the quicker the motion, the easier it comes off. And again, we'll have more clips underneath the headlight here. So just do the same thing, just work those clips off. Now if you're doing this by yourself, what you want to do is loosely seat that back in place. Go over to the other side and do the same process on the other side. Grab our fender right here. We're going to pull outwards. I'm going to do it one quick motion this time to show you the difference. All right, so we are going to keep working that out. And the same thing, our clips here underneath the headlight. Now for the most part, your bumper is free. Now, what we're gonna do is get to the front of the vehicle in the center and walk this bumper off. All right, so up top here, you may have to just kind of pry that upwards and off of that little tab on both sides. And then you can work your bumper straight off. Now at this point, you can either lean it on your leg and disconnect your fog lights, or if you've already done that, you can just go ahead and walk your bumper right off. If you've had to disconnect your fog lights and that's done, go ahead and grab your bumper from the center and just walk it straight back. Okay, up top on our air duct here, we have some Phillips push clips. I'm just gonna back these out. Now we can lift up and remove our air duct. We're going to lift it up and then left and right to take it out of the air box. We can set that aside. Okay, now we're going to take these 4 bolts out that connect your air duct to your upper radiator bracket. They're going to be 10 millimeter. All right, so we're going to remove our cable, our power source for our fans. Just going to push that clip and separate it. Now we have some plastic clips here into our fan assembly. We're going to remove those also. Now we can take this harness, pull it up out of the way. Okay, now we have a 10 millimeter bolt here. All right, one more 10 millimeter here. All right, one more bolt straight down on the bottom. Again, 10 millimeter. All right, so now your fan assembly should be free to lift out, and as well as this top bracket here should be able to come out and give you just a little bit more clearance. All right, now what we're going to do here is just remove our overflow hose off of the radiator fill neck. There are 2 clips on the bottom, left and right, that your fan assembly is in. All right, so there's the passenger side. And we'll do the same on the driver. All right, so we now have to take our radiator hose out of the fan assembly. It's just going to be pulled out of these clips, like so. Now what we're looking for is this clip right here. We're going to pull that up and out. All right, now underneath on our splash shield, we have 2 10 millimeter bolts holding the splash shield to the fender liner. We'll take those out. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. All right, now on the passenger side, we should have 2 10 millimeter bolts. Our vehicle's missing one of them, so we'll remove this one. And now you can take your splash shield right off. All right, so now with your bottom front splash shield removed, your rear splash shield can hang down a little bit. What that'll allow you to do is get in through this area or the bottom and get to your radiator drain. You're going to want to spin this counterclockwise, and it's going to drain straight through the bottom here. Okay, now with your front splash shield removed, you can peel back your rear splash shield, or you can come in through the fender side and gain access to this white plug here. This is going to be your drain plug for your radiator. We're going to spin that counterclockwise, and it's going to drain straight down through the bottom here, which is why we removed the splash shield. We'll go ahead and do that now. All right, so we're ready to drain our radiator. This is the point you want to have some kind of spill collection down. You want to catch the radiator fluid. We have a couple of mats and a pan down. I'm just going to use a pair of needle nose pliers to spin this counterclockwise. And now at this point, you're going to want to open your radiator cap on top. And that'll allow the flow of your coolant to come out much faster. All right, go ahead and close up your coolant drain. Okay, so now with our radiator being drained, we can remove our hose clamp. I'm just going to push that back out of the way and remove our upper radiator hose. Again, be ready for some spillage. And we can move that out of the way. All right, so now on our lower radiator hose, we're going to use a pair of long needle nose pliers and remove our hose clamp. And then we can go ahead and spin the hose off. We're going to try and keep the hose vertical the best we can until we can aim our residual coolant into our overflow pan. And we'll come around front, separate our condenser. To remove these plastic air deflectors, we have a couple of electrical clips going through them. So we're just going to use a panel tool on the front, pop these clips out. And on these here, if you can get behind them and squeeze the tabs, you can push them out. Just with the tool I have, that's a little difficult. Now that your electrical connection's free of this piece, we have two 10mm bolts, one down the bottom. All right, so on the bottom here, we have our 10mm bolt. We'll back that out. And straight up top, behind our headlight, we have another 10mm bolt. Take that out as well. Now this panel here, this air deflector, should be able to be moved and taken out. If you want to or feel the need to, this harness that goes through this deflector, you can remove that, just unplug the electrical connection, get that plug out of the way. You have a little bit more room to move that piece out. All right, so on the driver's side of our air dam here, our plastic piece, down the bottom, you'll see a 10mm bolt. You might not see it, it might be hidden behind this harness. I'm just gonna move that out of the way and take that 10mm out. Now if we come up to this top piece here, the top of the plastic piece, behind our headlight, you'll see a 10mm bolt in there. Take that one out as well. Okay, so now the driver's side, this can come out. Just gonna rotate it in, lift it straight out. All right, so here's our AC condenser. It's held in on both sides by these two press clips. Just gonna press them together and pull your condenser forward. All right, so just gonna use a pair of needle nose here. All right, do the same thing to the other side. Now our condenser is just sitting on a tab on both sides down the bottom. So So we're just going to put our hand in the middle, lift the condenser straight up to clear both of those tabs. And we can take our condenser and rest it forward as much as we can. Now our condenser is free from our radiator. We can remove our radiator. Across the top here on our radiator support bracket, we have 2 bolts facing straight up. We are going to remove those. And you can see a radiator neck and side becomes free. Do the same thing on the other side. And now your radiator is free to remove up and out of the vehicle. Try and lean it towards the passenger side. You'll drop a little bit less fluid. If your radiator came out like ours, the bushings are still attached to the radiator and not in the vehicle. At this point, you want to take these off, remember the orientation, and put them on your new radiator. So we'll do that on the bottom. All right, so we're going to take our radiator support bushings. We're going to put them in the vehicle on both sides, just the bottoms. And then we're going to lower our radiator down into them. All right, so just give it a tiny little twist if it needs to be moved a little bit. Don't twist too much. You don't want to break the seal around the edges. Feels like we're in place. Now what we'll do is install our top bushings, both left and right. And then we can slowly bring our radiator back into position. Line up these bolt holes. And snug these up. All right, we can line up our bolt holes here. We're going to need to transfer over our 90-degree elbow here for the bottom radiator hose. I'm going to push in on this tab on this side, which will release this wedge. Once that's released, you should be able to work off your elbow. Our 90-degree elbow for our lower radiator hose, we took it off after the fact before we dropped our radiator in. You can and probably should do this outside of the vehicle, makes it much easier. But if you happen to have forgotten, it is doable while it's in the vehicle. The hardest parts of this is going to be putting the wedge back in the bottom. So we're going to put it on top here. We're going to line up our notch to the notch on the radiator. We're going to squeeze our clamp top and bottom together and push our adapter into place. And if you are doing this in the vehicle, you just want to make sure 110% that you are all the way seated in. Otherwise, this is going to be an area where your radiator will leak. Now we can put our wedge back in the bottom. Okay. Now we can take our lower radiator hose and push that back onto our elbow that we just installed. And now we can put our hose clamp back into position. At this point, we can go ahead and lower our fan assembly back in. You definitely want to take your time here. Do not damage your new radiator fins. And you will probably come to a point where you get stuck on your lower radiator hose. Just push that out of the way. We will clip that back into the fan assembly in a minute. What we're going to do now is line up the bottom clips, make sure that those are in place. Okay, once you have your clips lined up, you may need to give it a little persuasion or push to get them to clip in both left and right. We used a rubber mallet and pushed ours over and got that to clip in. Now we can install our 10mm bolts, 2 in the top, 1 holding our hose clamp. All right, put our 2 10mm back in the top of our fan assembly. And 1 on the other side. And then 1 more straight down, holding the center of our lower radiator hose. All right, so we're going to put our bolt through and pull it into position. Now we can push our lower radiator hose into this clamp. All right, now we can start to reinstall our wiring for our fan assembly. We're going to do this now while our radiator hose is out of the way. And just plug in our electrical connection. Okay, now we can put our upper radiator hose on. Make sure it's seated all the way up, and we can put our hose clamp back into position. We can install these 4 bolts. All right, now we can run our radiator overflow hose, seat it back into the clamp on the radiator, and push it onto the barb. So on your radiator here, you have this T. On your condenser, you have this receiving tab. We're going to line those up on both the passenger and driver side. Once those are lined up, all right, now we can push our radiator clips through the condenser on both sides. Okay, we can reinstall our air deflectors. Just going to slide them into position sideways. Once we get to a certain point, you'll be able to rotate it. There's a notch in the back here on the plastic that you're going to line up here. That'll allow you to rotate it into position. It's also going to go underneath the little hooks here. And that will allow you to put your 1 top bolt in. And then if you go straight down to the bottom, you can put our 1 more 10mm bolt in place there. Down into the passenger side. We're going to lower it down sideways. We're going to keep it as far forward as we can. That way not doing any damage to our condenser. And just keep an eye on your electrical harness here. You're going to get it down to a point here. This will allow you to rotate when you match it up here. And we're just going to rotate it into position. All right, so once you've rotated it into position, we can start on the top, put our 10mm bolt in place. And we can put our other 10mm bolt in place down the bottom. And now from here, we can reconnect our electrical harness to this air dam. One clip in the bottom, one clip in the top, and then our electrical connection right there. All right, at this point, you want to cap your radiator off. You want to run your car to operating temperature. Let it run for a few minutes at operating temperature. Go ahead and shut your vehicle down. Check your radiator fluid, your coolant, after your car has completely cooled down and the cap is cold to the touch. Open it back up and fill to the top as needed. Okay, so we're going to walk our bumper up to the vehicle. So now we're going to go ahead and reattach our fog lights and then put our bumper back on. We're going to align the center with our hood latch and put our radiator support cover over the hood latch. That should get us somewhere centered close. Now we can move over to our headlights. Let's see if our headlights fit in. They look pretty good on both sides. That gap here looks pretty good. So what we can do now is pick a side. We're going to start on this side here. We have some tabs on the bumper. These tabs need to go into the tabs underneath the headlight. We also have tabs down the side of the bumper. They will need to go into our bumper bracket on the fender. So we're going to lift our bumper up until those tabs look like they want to go into position. Same thing on the side. We're going to align those tabs. And we're just going to give it a good smack into position. And we'll do the same on the other side. Okay, so on this side, again, we're going to look for our tabs to go in underneath our headlight and our tabs to go on our bumper bracket on our fender. You may have to pull up slightly to get them into position. Looks pretty good. We'll give it a little hit. Looks good. All right, so up top here on our radiator support cover, we have our push clips to put back in place. We're going to put in our 10mm bolt. Okay, so on the inside of our bumper lip here, we have 1, 2, 3 push clips we can reinstall. These are going to hold our fender liner to the bumper. And then straight up from the third is where our 10mm bolt's going to go back in. We can put our push pins back in Holding our fender liner to our bumper on this side now. And then straight up from here is our 10 mil bolt.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.